If you've ever been on a first date and it was a bit awkward or uncomfortable, or you just didn't have fun and felt like you were wasting your time, you gotta keep watching this video because I'm going to give you 5 tips to make your first date less awkward and, dare I say, even fun. I'm Jason Silver, the dating coach for ambitious women. On my channel, Attract Great Guys, I reveal strategies to help you attract a high-quality man into a committed, lifelong relationship. Hit that red subscribe button and the little notification bell next to it so you don't miss any of my upcoming free trainings. Now let's jump right into it. Number 1, position yourself next to him instead of directly across from him. Now, this is really important. When you're sitting right across from each other, it's almost like a competitive interview. There's just an energy of performance, like you are performing in front of someone. There's a strong energy. And to dilute that a little bit, to make it a little bit more comfortable, if you're at a square table, you want to sit right next to someone. Just gently look over to them and be closer to them. This allows you a few things. Number 1, it allows you both to not have to perform in front of each other. You're kind of more aligned and facing in the same direction. It almost feels like you're a unified couple. Number 2, he can smell you. This is always a good thing. Listen, we're primal beings. Being a little bit closer and sniffing some of those pheromones can't hurt. Number 3, if he's funny or says something, you both can flirt. You can grab his arm and say, that's hilarious, and just have a little bit of physical contact. Whereas, when you're across the way, you're just like all the way over here. It's just a little bit too much. So see if you can sit right next to them. I might even go so far as to say that if you're sitting in a booth, to sit next to him in the booth. Now, some people may be very uncomfortable with this, but I think it's flirtatious and nice. And a couple of things will happen. If the guy starts to get inappropriate with you and he starts to try to touch you, well, you can get up and move, or you can leave. Because someone that's gonna try to escalate sexually and aggressively on the first date might not be a good fit for you. Or what could happen is he could feel like, wow, this woman is comfortable and confident and intimate and flirtatious. What a great thing. And how does that differentiate who you are in the date between that and someone else that's sitting directly across from him and asking him a bunch of interview questions? So I always suggest sitting next to someone when possible, and even finding those smaller square tables or coffee tables where you can just sit next to each other so you don't have to slide into the same booth. Number 2, don't try to be impressive. Be yourself. Check out this little clip from this comedian, James.
I got anxious, needy, and insecure. And you might be thinking, just be yourself, mate. Be yourself. In a relationship, what if they don't like you, man? What if every relationship you've ever been in is just somebody slowly figuring out they didn't like you as much as they hoped they would? One day I'll have the guts to end the show there.
Now that is a sad thought, the idea that you're in a whole relationship only to let someone else down. And typically, that's what I think happens when people approach a first date and they try to be attractive to the other person and to be someone they're not. Because then the rest of the relationship is you slowly trying to be the who that you are in front of the other person, to be more and more vulnerable. Now, I'm not telling you to dump everything, and we'll talk about that later on, but I do think that it's important to just be yourself. And if that isn't attractive to another person, well, again, that's a good thing. You want to be polarizing and different. The more that we can appreciate ourselves and really have the love for who we are and what we have to offer, the more that we can exude that to people. And if they want that, well, they can try to build a relationship with us. And if they don't want that, well, then we know. So we can swiftly move on and find the person that is magnetically a good fit for us. So on that first date, you don't have to try to be anyone you're not. All you have to do is be yourself. Now, I know that's easier said than done, but the more that you practice being yourself, the more that you fall in love with yourself, and the more that you're aware and grateful for all the things that you have to bring to a relationship, the easier it becomes. Number 3, limit the time of your first date. I don't suggest doing a first date that's longer than 2 to 3 hours, because if you're getting along really great and things are vibing really well, The immediate desire is, well, let's keep it going as long as possible. But in reality, you want to leave that first date on a strong note. You want to have a great 2 to 3 hours of a first date. That's a wonderful thing. You don't need to just keep going and keep going and keep going because it just becomes too much. Now, alternatively, if it's not a good fit and you two aren't getting along, it puts an end to the time. So you don't have to waste a bunch of time and energy in a relationship or a guy that is just not a good fit. So I really like for first dates, grabbing a drink or grabbing a coffee and telling them in the beginning of the date, listen, I gotta be out of here by 10 o'clock, just letting you know I've gotta do X, Y, Z. Come up with something. But always try to let them know in the beginning of the date that you can't stay past a certain time. And this takes the pressure off. This means that you know that there's a certain out, and if you need to leave earlier, you can always do that by saying, hey, I gotta get going, I just got a call or a text. Always have an out so you're not wasting hours on a date that's not a good fit. And if it is a good fit, again, you're leaving it on a high note. Number 4, don't kiss him on the first date. Now, this might be a little bit polarizing. I just don't think that there's a big upside to making out with a guy on the first date. It does a couple of things negatively. Number 1, the guy feels like he's already won your affection. And how easy is that? It just takes one simple little date and all of a sudden a guy gets kissed and, he could just inflate his ego in his own mind. Oh, this woman is so into me. I just blew her away on that single date. I think the better thing to do is to let him know, tell him if you enjoyed your time, say, I really love this. I'd love to go out again. I'd like to get to know you more. And what that does is it sets a standard that you are someone who really needs a man to invest in her before you're going to commit to him. And the moment that you start getting physical and intimate, all sorts of chemicals are just injected through our brain, and it could mess with our logic and our rational thinking. So I think there's just no upside. If the guy's annoyed, and if he starts getting aggressive or upset or feeling rejected, well, bingo, you just filtered out a guy who's not a good fit. If a guy is that aggressive where he's gonna make you feel bad for not making out with him on the first date, well then, this doesn't seem like a great quality man who's looking for a longer term relationship. If you are looking for a long-term relationship, going slow in the beginning is nice. I mean, if this guy can't go a little bit slow in the beginning, imagine what happens when you're in bed with him later on. I mean, this guy is just straight to the punch, straight to what he wants. There's no taking the moment as it is and enjoying each other's company. So I think not kissing on the first date only has upsides. It filters out the men who are too aggressive, and it helps you to connect with the men who appreciate you, want a little bit of a challenge of getting to know each other and making sure you're a good fit before you throw in all those sexual chemicals that are just gonna screw up your rational thinking. Number 5, don't say anything to this guy that you don't want published in the newspaper. I say this because it can be easy to want to open up and be vulnerable on the first date. Because like I said earlier, you want to be polarizing. Maybe you have trauma or baggage from the past and you'd like to just get that out of the way, and if the guy likes you, great, and if not, move on. But the problem with that is that this is not a safe space for you to start dumping some highly vulnerable information. The first date is designed as more of a general vibe check to allow you to see, do you even get along in the same vicinity for a period of time? Is there a baseline of physical attraction? And ultimately, do our values and our vision align with one another? That's what you want to do on the first date. Everyone has baggage, everyone has past experiences that they want to bring up and share, but the first date is not the time to do it. Realistically, most first dates never move to a second date. So imagine you're just going on all of these first dates, dumping some highly vulnerable information only for these dates not to turn into second dates, and where does that leave you? It leaves you feeling like you overshared. It leaves you feeling extremely judged because you've just shared highly personal things about yourself, and now there's a bunch of random people out there that have highly sensitive information about you. This is not how you want to approach first dates. If you do that, I can see why you wouldn't want to go on a bunch of first dates. That's just too much. It's too much to handle for anyone. So on the first date, get a general vibe check and learn about their vision and values. Keep the more vulnerable, intimate, past experiences to yourself until later on, maybe the third or the fourth date. That's when you can start revealing more. And yes, you are right, it does take more investment, but that's dating. You have to take the time. You can't jump a step, because what ends up happening is you scare the other person away. Now, if you follow these steps, you can actually find guys who are a good fit, and you can actually start to enjoy the first date process. Whether you're a good fit or not, you can learn more about yourself, you can meet new people, maybe even meet friends, even if they're not a great romantic connection. Now, I didn't go over one of the most important parts of the first date, which is the pre-date phone or video call. This is the most important part because it saves you so much time and energy from actually meeting only the right guys on the first date. I actually go through the pre-date qualification process in my premium program, a lot of P's there, the Silver Method. So I will drop a link in the description. You can check out my presentation on the program if you're interested, and I'll see you over there. Thanks so much for watching. Be well.